Okay, great. All right, well, again, welcome. Boy, I can't believe it's already March. Here we are, ready to have our quarterly NG911 meeting. And I kind of wanted to delay this one a little bit, partly because I wanted to get some information on the status of our imagery collection for this year. So you'll see as I get into a couple of slides here, I have some information to share on that. So I hope everyone's doing well, suffered through the deep freeze and get signed up for your vaccines, and we're all going to be able to see each other again very soon. So looking forward to that. Okay, let's just move forward then. So our agenda today is similar to all the previous user group meetings. I'm going to provide a project update, and then I'm going to talk about the 2021 imagery acquisition. And then I'll hand it off to Kristen Jordan Koenig, who's going to talk about the next gen 911 toolbox and just kind of some general data processing, including post-processing updates. And then after that, I will hand it off to Sherry Massey, who will talk about the GeoIMSAG and geospatial call routing. All right, so just some general project updates. This is the current status map of the hosted solution. So everyone in all of the PSAPs in green are currently on the hosted solution. Didn't know that we'd have a lot of growth beyond this year. Kind of thought we were kind of settled in where we thought we'd be, but we actually have 5 more PSAPs joining the hosted solution in 2021. And so those are the PSAPs highlighted in blue. We also still have a few PSAPs in Kansas that have their own standalone PSAP, their own solution currently, and then also the MARC region, which would be all of the counties in gray. So we're filling in kind of nicely. And actually, I should have said 5, it would be 6 actually, 6 PSAPs joining the host solution if you add KU. So it'll be, Junction City, Geary, Osage, Coffee, Doniphan, Douglas County, as well as the University of Kansas PSAP as well. So technically 6 PSAPs joining us this year. And those will be in the next few months. They've kind of got working on the dates for their installation or rollout, but I think according to the calendar, if all goes as planned, most of those PSAPs will be cut over to the hosted solution by the end of summer. So that's very exciting. A few more updates I kind of wanted to cover. I thought instead of always just, giving you deadlines, because I'm really good at that, a reminder of the quarterly deadline. So just a reminder that we got our first quarter deadline coming up at the end of this month. And then I listed all the other quarterly deadlines there as well. You guys do a fantastic job with your maintenance. We continue to have 100% participation. We continue to be the envy of the nation, of many people saying, how do you get everyone to participate? And we're like, well, Kansas is just that way, So thank you for your questions, your engagement, your submissions, and everything. So that's what's keeping the current data in front of the call handlers to answer those 911 calls. I thought I'd remind on a couple other things we do weekly. I think we've talked about this in various forms and different ways, and actually Sherry will touch on one of them I'm going to talk about here a little bit later in her slides, but just general reminders of, okay, you submit all this data to the portal, we validate it, and then, okay, remind me again what happens next. So Kristen has all these very complicated advanced scheduled scripts that kick in, and one of them is we update all of the services that support Rapid Deploy's Radius Plus, which is the current call handling mapping software. So that's the map that the call handlers see when they get a 911 call. So we update everything that's been submitted to the portal, has passed validation, is compiled, aggregated, updated into these services weekly on Mondays at 4 a.m. So you can see, since these are some big data compilation pieces, we kind of try to stagger them out. So we're not trying to update everything at once, because usually that doesn't make systems and scripts very happy when we do that. So that happens Mondays at 4 a.m. One of the other things that happens weekly is we package up the data in preparation for submission to the EGDMS, which is where the GeoIMSAGs are maintained or updated if needed. And that happens on our end weekly on Tuesdays at 8:45 a.m. So again, if your data has been submitted to the portal, At that time, we grab everything that's updated, package it up, and submit it to EGDMS for GeoIMSAG maintenance. Another thing I thought that has come up, because a lot of state agencies use our geocoders, is, okay, cool. So you've got all this great data. Is that updated in the geocoders? Well, yes, it is. That also is updated weekly, Sundays at 10:30 a.m. So you can see we kind of have a rolling system of updates, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, really, to support, excuse me, these 3 different systems, and to make sure the data that's being submitted or the data that people are looking at is always the most current available data that's been validated through the 911 portal. So just kind of want to remind you all, that's kind of the behind the scenes post-validation processing and when that data gets updated. Okay, let's see here. All right, so the next big thing, take a quick drink, is the update of our OTHR imagery, which is so exciting. So yes, we are in there, we are flying. So the latest contract, which we updated you all on, signed with Surdex for another 3-year contract. And gosh, after that deep freeze and all that snow, and I thought we were gonna be frozen solid for months. Well, geez, a week later, it's 60, 70 degrees warmer. So everything melted pretty quickly. So we're able to get planes up in the air and start flying. Also, thank you to, there's several of you, I shared, I asked if you would be a local ground condition contact. So I shared at least a dozen names and contact information with Surdex that they probably reached out to you to find out what it did look on the ground, like if snow is really melted, because we certainly didn't want to start flying. If there was snow covering fields or any major patches of ground, or anything that would really alter the way the imagery looks. We want the bare ground. So thank you to everyone who participated in that. And this is a quick snapshot of the SurCheck flight tracker from yesterday. So let me switch over real quick to what it looks like today. So if you're looking for this after the meeting, we put a link to actually see the flights as they're ongoing right here on the front page of the DASC website. So you can click right here, say acquisition is started, see flight tracker here. You click on that, that'll bring up the statewide project flight tracker. So look at this. I love this. I was watching it a lot yesterday just because it's fun to watch. Look at all the flights. So basically what we're looking at is they're planning on flying the western half of Kansas this year. I think, flight conditions and ground conditions continue to be favorable. Maybe they'll expand a little further east. So the green lines are the lines that are ready to fly. The blue lines represent where flights have already taken place. And then the nifty arrows, pink and purple lines are where the planes are actually been flying today. So they've covered a lot of ground. Really, in the last few days, they started flying on Friday when they decided ground conditions were favorable. So really impressed with how quickly they got planes deployed, fueled up, and out there actually collecting imagery. So we're really excited to see that happening. So if you're ever just like, ooh, what's the status on the imagery collection? You can go to into the DASC website. Under announcements, there's a link right there, and that'll send you right to the flight tracker. So that is really exciting. Glad to see that. Oops, nope, that's not the end of it. Let me go back here. Oh, geez. Okay. So again, the flight pattern they're generally following is flying west to east as well as south to north to kind of follow the flight pattern we did the last 2 collections in an effort to replace the oldest imagery first, and then graduate into the most eastern next set, which is the most recently collected, you could argue, within that time. Let's see here. So that is kind of the collection and how it's going. So let's talk about timelines. So just a reminder, these are the specifications for the imagery. It's going to be statewide. If not all this year, at least by the end of next year, we'll have statewide collected. 1 foot leaf off, the 4-band color and color infrared available. For this collection, there will be no licensing restrictions. So it'll be full public domain, so we wouldn't have to put together credentials to access services or or request data through a data request queue. It'll all be available through download, unless you're requesting a ton of data because of the file size. That will be only our limitations. If you can't use the service that's available, then we'll ask you to send a flash drive or hard drive to load the imagery up for you if you want a pretty large area. The data will be available in GeoTIFF and Mr. SID formats, and then listed are the 4 different projections is what the imagery will be delivered in. So a lot of good data coming, at least like I said, hopefully the the western half for this year. So it takes a while to acquire the data and to process it. So we're acquiring now, hopefully until, things get too green. So we want leaf off. So we'll continue to acquire now through mid-April. Unless if things green up quicker than they should, then they'll probably stop early, but that's the goal through mid-April. Then they kind of do an initial processing of the data to start looking at, how the imagery looks, if anything needs to be reflown, just initial looks at everything. And then once they really dig into processing it, we will then have ortho imagery ready for the QA, which is we'll be using against Surdex's SurCheck, which is a really nifty web application that they had issues last time, where we can have different users sign in and assign you to a specific tile or area of interest and have you check the imagery for that. And we got a lot of really good feedback and some corrections from that. So we will need your help again. We'll be reaching out to you probably before October when we know a little bit better. The data is processed and ready to be reviewed. So again, we appreciate your help last time. We had, Kristen managed that piece, and we had quite a number of people participate in that. And the more eyes on the data, the better. And Surdex is so great and responsive about taking that feedback and getting that data corrected. So this is where we all help each other, and it really works out. So by the time we get through QA and everyone's had time to look at it and post that feedback, we're anticipating the final delivery of at least the imagery acquired this year. So it'll probably just be the western half of the state, will be around December. So that doesn't mean it's automatically available for download. That means we anticipate it by the end of the year, and we'll certainly work on getting it available in services and posted for download and available to send in your hard drives shortly after that. So I know we all were like, yay, planes are in the air. Can we have the imagery tomorrow? Well, I wish we could too, but it does take quite a bit. We increased the accuracy levels of the statewide imagery collection. So there's a lot of ground control reference and just a lot of corrections and things to make it really accurate, great data. So need to allow some time for them to process it and get it available for us. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about in ortho imagery is local biop options. So that is still an option for anyone interested. In the previous contract span with Surdex, we had several projects. I have a little graphic there of who participated in that. It was either joint county project, like Douglas County and Jefferson counties came together and got a flight for their entire 3-county area at one time at a lower resolution. And we had a lot of counties get their cities flown at a higher resolution as well. So we had some fly 6-inch and some fly 3-inch resolution for their cities. So if you're interested in that, we encourage you to reach out to Tim Zonzi. I've got his email and phone number there for your reference. All these agreements are actually between your organization and Surdex. It's just kind of I guess a benefit to have this option to be able to kind of latch onto the existing contract, but your actual agreement between you and Surdex. And each of these bio projects are all designed specifically for your needs. So Tim will work with you to decide what your area of interest is, what resolution you're looking at, and then provide some cost estimates on what that would be. So feel free to reach out to Tim if you're interested in something like that. And That option actually spans the life of the contract. So again, I said we have a 3-year contract. So even if you don't want to do about this flying season, you could try, you could work with them next year or even the year after. So we have a 3-year span where you can take advantage of that buy-up option. So reach out to Tim, even if you're don't have an immediate need, but you're thinking about next year or another year, I'm sure he'd be able to help you talk through those options. So very excited about imagery. Once we get imagery done and refreshed, then we'll start as we can, has available, refreshing it as well for the call handlers, since they're the, our primary users for this imagery. But again, that won't be until well after the end of the year before we'd have that imagery available for that purpose. So, okay, I think with that, I'm ready to hand it off to Kristen. So let me find you, Kristen, and unmute you. Let's see here. There you are. Okay, did you unmute yourself?
It let me.
Excellent. Okay, take it away.
Okay, so decided that instead of just straight up toolbox update, it should probably be a general NG911 processing update. So it'll be a little bit of both. Some good news, because the toolbox is open source, several other states are using toolbox portions in their own NG911 initiatives. And so far I've heard about Iowa, Illinois, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. But because it's posted on GitHub, it's very possible other states have used it as well. So thank you everybody for reporting bugs. We are helping people nationwide with their NG911 data QA/QC efforts. So that's pretty cool. Looking ahead at toolbox updates, we had one in January. And with that, the main issue that was changed, was the parity check has turned from a notice into an error. So this is where the toolbox checks the parity L and R fields against the actual values. For example, if you have an address range that's, for example, 1 to 90, but it's marked as odd as a parity, that's flagged as an issue. That should either be flagged as mixed, or the range should be, 1 to 91 or something like that. So that's what those errors will start coming back as. Also, portal submissions should theoretically now process slightly faster, since there is now less post-processing necessary for Vesta Locate. I don't really know if anybody is going to see that on their end, but it helps on days that we have lots of submissions, just chunking through all those slightly faster. Thinking about future toolbox updates, I'm contemplating reducing the messages that come back as you're running the tool. So instead of saying, for every feature class, every field that it checks being okay, we might just have one wrap-up message. I can even include fewer messages. Just kind of depends on what is helpful or what is not helpful. If people are even reading the messages, then I can certainly take them out, or if they find them helpful. So shoot me an email or put your vote in the chat. It'd be great to get some feedback on what people think. Either just, hey, leave it as it is. Yeah, take some stuff out. It could even be, add more messages. We love them. Although I doubt that's going to be okay. Oh, votes for messages. Wow. All right, good to know. So if there's anything else that you'd like to see or not see in the toolbox, keep an open line of communication, since, this is primarily other people giving feedback and letting me know what you like and don't like about it. Okay, we can go on. For other processing updates, we have added even more QA/QC before submitting data to Intrado. This is our EGDMS submission. Overall, the data is pretty good, but every now and then something weird happens. And all of a sudden somebody's roads won't be there, or, we've had other strange things happen. We don't want that. So we're adding some even more QA/QC, since, to make sure that the submissions that we get in are being properly populated in our statewide data, which is then processed for a GDMS. So just making sure that, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that everything is good. And the rapid deploy updates have been working consistently for quite a while now. If anybody's interested in the infrastructure behind the scenes, we're doing quite a lot with vector tile packages with that. So if anybody's been exploring that for maps, especially in ArcGIS Online, shoot me an email, since I've got a little bit of experience with them now. But they've tended to work out pretty well for what we're doing. That's the gist of my update, unless anybody has any questions or feedback.
I'd just like to add on to that, Kristen, if you're ever really wanting to dig into all of the things that happen post-processing, Kristen has a document on the DASK website under initiatives that details the post-processing. So if you ever just need a light read, it's out there for you to review at any time. So.
If you need help falling asleep.
Yeah, whatever it is. Right. Okay, I don't see any other chat items. All right, thank you, Kristen. I'm going to switch over now for Sherry's update. I'm sorry I didn't get Sherry's slides pushed into my presentation yet, so we're doing this the old school way. So Sherry, whenever you're ready, let me ask to unmute you. Maybe that'll help.
There we go.
Okay, there's Sherry. All right, thanks.
All right, hello everybody. I'm doing the update as usual on the GeoMSAG and the geospatial call routing, basically the technical functions for which we're doing all these data maintenance items. So if you go ahead to the next slide, we have just a couple of news items. There are 95 PSAPs on the system that are routing solely with GIS data, which means their 911 calls are routing solely with GIS data. And as Eileen mentioned earlier, 6 more will be coming on here in the next few months. They actually will start coming online towards the end of March and are currently scheduled to have them all finished in June. The later PSAPs in that list, those dates get a little bit fuzzy because there are a whole lot of working parts to getting a PSAP online. It's certainly not just their GIS data, but still by the end of the summer, we're looking at having them all online. Then for training, as a reminder, the GIS Data Steward class has been created as an online class for 911 personnel. That is in what is called the Learn platform from NeoGov, which is a service that the Coordinating Council subscribes to. Because of the way 911 fees work, that is for employees of 911 centers only. So if you have somebody that is interested in the GIS data steward information, but cannot enroll for the class, let me know, and we can put together the materials at least as a PDF for them to be able to review separately. The data maintainer class will probably be held around CAM, and the other probably is that it will probably be virtual. All of that is probably right now because we aren't entirely certain how things are going to go. But we got a lot of good feedback on the virtual class last year. And that session, if you haven't seen it or if you want to review it, the recording of that session is available online and all the information is still relevant. With the exception of any technical updates that come over the course of this year, there probably won't be very many changes to the class from last year because I'm happy to say the project just in general is in a relatively mature state, and the only thing that we're really dodging and weaving about is the occasional technical hiccup. So can you go to the next slide? Thank you. A couple of reminders. First of all, there are GIS impacts for going geospatial. Probably the most obvious of which is that when a 911 center is using geospatial call routing, your emergency service boundary data is displaying for them, telling them which police, fire, and EMS entity needs to respond. The fact is that most 911 centers get those kind of recommendations from their computer-aided dispatch system. They don't necessarily rely on the ones that are on the screen, but some do. And should that computer-aided dispatch system fail or not have up-to-date information, that 911 information is going to be pretty critical. So please keep an eye on it and keep it up to date. The display field is what they see. That field by standard is 60 characters long. That's the national standard and the Kansas standard, but the phone software only shows the first 32 characters of that field. And so the toolbox, when you run your data through, will give you a notice saying, hey, your display field is longer than will display in the software. We do know, as a reminder, that what it does is truncate, so it displays the first 32 characters. You don't lose everything or have it go blank. So, in order for that to happen, though, your emergency service boundary alignment has to be complete and submitted. And if you'd go to the next slide, please. This is our current map, ESB alignment status map, and the counties that have not completed the alignment yet, which is anybody with a color on them at all, are getting some generic response information. So they're getting generic checked local map data style notices instead of police, fire, and EMS responders. Once the alignment is complete, that will update. Next slide, please. So the second reminder is to let you guys know, again, as I have said many times, that getting the data into a GeoMSAG takes a minute. So once you submit changes to the portal, we submit the changes to Intrado on the next Tuesday. And we can do a submission faster if you need it, but you have to let us know. It runs automatically on Tuesdays. And once it processes through the validation tests we have to pass to get it to Intrado, what we've been seeing is somewhere between 1 and 5 business days before those changes actually show up in the GeoMSAG for the phone companies to make use of. So sometimes it goes very fast, and if there is a particular change you're worried about, I can often sort of hand carry it through the system and ask Intrado to pay particular attention to it and implement it quickly. But the overall set of data edits, it takes a little while to get through there, and that is something to keep in mind. Also, we have run into a couple of maintenance issues where Intrado's system has either been unavailable or has had a problem processing the data, which has caused a delay a couple of times. We don't anticipate this happening a whole lot, but just be aware that that could be there. And since many phone companies will not turn on phone service to a landline phone without it being in the 911 database, this could actually cause a delay in somebody getting phone service turned on, and so you may hear about it. There's not a lot that we can do to speed things up other than, like I said, kind of hand carry it through, but just keep in mind that all these delays might be in there. Next slide, please. The other reminder that I wanted to give you guys is that all of this is still pretty new to AT&T and Intrado. In some ways, newer to them than us, because they're still supporting a lot of customers on the older style of things. So even though they are providing the service, what we found is that not every one of their employees is real familiar with it. There have been some kinks in the system, and they have caused some trouble. So, for example, occasionally a road segment within the GIS data will fail to process. Where we have seen this is most often with segments that are 0 to 0 on one side and then a regular address range on the other. 99% of the time they process fine, but every once in a while one of them will get left out of the processing. And how we have handled that in the past is that you guys find out about it. Somebody asks you to put in a range for a road you know is in your data. You get a hold of me, and I get with Intrado and say, hey, what gives? It should be there. And they go back through and find the error in their processing and get it implemented. We're really hoping to help them work through that so that we don't run into those anymore. And there haven't been all that terrible many of them, I'm glad to say, but it does occasionally happen. And then recently we had quite an issue. So I got contacted by a GIS data maintainer saying, hey, there's this list of addresses that I'm being asked to review, and they're all in my data. What's more, they've been in my data for a long time. What happened? So we went back in, and what we found was that because of an error on our end, we submitted the data to Intrado missing a substantial portion of one county. And Intrado did not say anything to us. There was no indication to us from them that there was an issue with the data. And every safety check that should have caught this failed. The changes were built, meaning that all of those MSAGs were listed for deletion. And what was supposed to happen, since there were phone numbers associated with those MSAGs, is that that deletion was not supposed to happen. We were supposed to be notified so that we could review it and decide if it was really valid or not. That notification didn't happen. They just got deleted. And our first indication of it was the GIS maintainer letting us know that they had just been hit up about all these addresses. So we're working through that with Intrado to find out what happened, how it happened, what the timing was. But the important thing to take away here is that if you see something strange or you're asked to fix something that you think isn't broken, please contact me. I'm with these stories. I know it makes it sound like the system is pretty unreliable. That isn't the case. The vast majority of our edits slide right through and work exactly as they are intended. But when it goes wrong, it tends to go kind of spectacularly wrong. And so don't assume that the issue is with you. If you can't see it, if it isn't obvious, communicate with me so that we can take a look at the data. It could be something in our validation tests. It could be something in the way we incorporated your data into the statewide data set, or it could be something that was processed incorrectly on Intrado's end. And you have to be able to see all of those pieces in order to determine that, and that requires us to engage a couple of vendors and data from several different systems. So don't hesitate to contact me. Also, I don't actually have a slide for this, but I have had a couple of questions come up recently about driveways and alleys. And so I want to address that with you guys. We have some people who are wanting to put driveways and alleys into their road data, and it is certainly allowable to do so. You can add any segments that you want, be they paper roads, be they driveways, be they alleys, whatever they need to be. If legal addresses are going to be assigned off of them, or addresses that may end up with a telephone record are going to be assigned off of them, please put address ranges on them and mark them for submission. If they are not going to be addressed, if they are just driveways or just alleys with no addressing, feel free to add them into your data and just mark them as not for submission. That way we don't process them into the various address determining data sets like the geocoder. If you want them available for your 911 operators to see in the rapid deploy mapping application, you can make them for submission. So submit would be yes, but GeoMSAG would be no. And that way they won't go into that addressing data, but they will be available and visible on the maps inside the rapid deploy application. So I believe that is everything that I was going to cover. Are there any questions anybody has or anything that you would like me to go over?
If you're unable to unmute yourself, you can put it in the chat. I'm not seeing anything at this point in time.
Great. Well, as always, you are welcome to contact me. I really encourage people right now to get a hold of me via email. That is because, just as a quick update, Dickinson County is renovating. And that means that we have moved to temporary quarters. That move just happened in the last couple of weeks, and we have a whole lot of things like construction meetings and sort of compromised living environment going on, and it's just a lot easier for me to communicate in writing because I'm available when I'm available, and sometimes even here at my desk it gets a little loud and it's a little difficult to talk on the phone. So, but you're welcome to get with me whenever.
I would echo that. If you need to get a hold of me, Kristen, like with the whole IP phone system KU's using, but we're still working from home, like the whole call and or leave a voicemail like doesn't work. So just shoot me an email and then I know I'll get it.
Oh, good to know. Yeah, and sometimes we're doing these kind of things and the phone rings and we can't catch it. So emails are always a good option. We do have a chat. We don't need to say who from, but someone asked if alignment is not completed yet. What do I do? I'm asking for a friend. So yeah.
I was going to say, so there are alignment tools within the toolbox that kind of take you through a step-by-step, but basically we have a PSAP boundary that is the coordinating council's sort of official PSAP boundary, and your data has to align to that and then have no gaps or overlaps within that boundary for your police, fire, and EMS. The question that has come up previously is when you take a look at the boundary lines for a given PSAP, they are, I guarantee you, not going to match what you have locally. And the reason for that is we basically, way oversimplifying the work that Kristen put into it, but still basically split the difference between neighbors. So where there were overlaps or gaps between neighboring PSAPs, we just evened them out. And so it's almost guaranteed not to align to what you have. If you want to make adjustments to that PSAP boundary to line up better with what you have, that is fine, but you have to have your neighbors sign off on it. So getting that PSAP boundary adjusted will take a little bit of work and negotiation and all of that kind of thing on your end, but if you can match to the boundary that we have provided, getting your ESVs lined up in there is how you get them submitted. Is that enough information for your friend?
Yeah, he seems to be kind of quiet now, so it must be. Well, just a little follow-up to that. Ken and I regularly sit in on NSGIC, National State Geographic Information Council meetings and calls, and this is something every state trying to transition to Next Gen 911 is struggling with, and we have to count ourselves fortunate because we have so many right angles and nice rectangles and squares and things in our state. Not as many, we have a few water boundaries, but not as many as other states. So we're pretty fortunate that the alignment that Kristen went through, after making sure it didn't exclude, address that should be on, in a particular boundary, it was really just kind of evening out, almost middle of the road type of boundary. So it wasn't a huge lift to try to get our data aligned. So we're pretty lucky there. Okay, we'll continue to pop in your questions if you have any. Just to kind of wrap things up, my final slide, which is over here. Oh, we can see that, is just a reminder to check the websites for updates. That you can always check the 911 Coordinating Council's website. There's actually a GIS page for that. And since I'm sharing my whole screen, we'll go to the DASC website here. And in case you've never been here, under initiatives, Next Gen 911, this is always what we're referring to as where this content is. And specifically, Sherry was talking about the 2020 GIS maintainer training still being available. So if you go click under training, You'll find that link right here. So if we have updates or anything else to add, we'll always kind of update the content there under training, in addition to all the other tabs that contain different information as well. So just a reminder that that content is out there. And with that, that is my update for today. Besides, it's fun to watch the planes, so check that out too. Is there any other comments or questions before we wrap up today? Okay, I don't see anything else, so feel free to email us if you have anything that comes to mind afterwards. But I thank everyone for their time, especially Kristen and Sherry for your updates, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.